So we're here to talk about developing and retaining awesome older scouts. Maybe? Gosh, we're going to do this again, are we? All right, here we go. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Marcy Swagger. Little bit about me. I've been part of Troop 373 in San Jose since about 2006. And I've served as their advancement chair, their scoutmaster, their assistant scoutmaster, committee member, and I've been a merit badge counselor. Before that, I was with PAC 318 in San Jose from 1999 to about 2003 as Bobcat, Wolf Bear, Weeble 1, and Weeble 2 den leader. I've also served on Wood Badge as Troop Guide 1 and Troop Guide 2. I spent 2 years as the Pioneer District Boy Scout Roundtable Commissioner. I co-founded Venture Crew 373 and served as its committee chair, and I'm an Ordeal member in the Order of the Arrow. Just a little bit about my background. And the reason I tell you this is this course was a participant request after University of Scouting 2019. It was something that was put out to the presenters for 2020 as, hey, if anybody is interested in taking this on. I thought back to, my scouting experience and said, I think I might be able to develop something. So you are my second set of guinea pigs. This is only the second time I have presented this, and I hope that you guys will find some value in it. All right, a quick side note here. I want to make it clear that, and if I haven't already made it clear, that my experience in scouting has largely been with the Boy Scouts, now the Scouts BSA program. And in light of this, my presentation is largely geared towards that program, but I believe the information that I present is applicable to Sea Scouts and to Venturers and their unique ranks and program offerings. And I apologize in advance if I tend to use the pronoun he a lot. Again, my experience has largely been with a pack and a troop filled with male youth. Thus, my verbiage tends to reflect this, but I in no way mean to exclude any gender identity. Okay, moving on. Maybe. I'm gonna do this again. Holy mackerel. All right, so in my scouting time, I found that there are many fun and acceptable ways to scout and to get value from the program. A lot of scouts tend to be the kind that join, they're active, they stick around until they age out. Sometimes those scouts leave or they're only sort of interested, and we wonder if there's anything that we could do to prevent that. And that's why you're all here, right? So the units I've been involved with have had their fair share of attrition and lack of enthusiasm, and there have been many reasons for both. Today I'll be sharing some of what I've learned as I've gone along, and I hope each of you will find some good tidbits that can help you with your scouts and your units. And just as a reminder, if you all could get yourselves muted, that would be lovely. Okay, here we go. So let's start off with a question. What does communication cost? Think about that just for a second. The answer is, doesn't cost a thing. Communication is your second most important development and retainment tool. I've found it vital to really talk with your scouts and to get to know them. We should get to know what it is that they're looking to get out of the program, and we should be asking them questions. It's also good just to get to know the scouts, to inquire about how school's going when they come to a meeting, and just how life is. You might find out that a scout could use some help or advice from a peer, in which case you could direct another suitable scout their way. Or it might just be that a scout could use someone to talk to. Scoutmaster conferences aren't just for rank advancement. And when we positively interact with our youth in this way, we become able to give timely encouragement and advice that makes them want to stay engaged with the unit and its program, and gives us an opportunity to know when a good time to suggest new paths is. This also allows us as leaders to spot when something is going sideways with the scout. And it allows for the youth to get to know the adult leaders and what the adult leaders are thinking. Please remember too, not to talk about scouts negatively during meetings or outings. If you've got grievances, either find time to address them directly and quietly with the scout or scouts in question, or save it for a private discussion with other adults when you're not on scouting time. Okay, and just one more time, somebody is still not on mute. I can hear you moving around. If you could all just please, real quick, check your mute buttons. I wouldn't care so much, but we're kind of being recorded. All right, now don't forget about your Scouts family. It's always good to have at least said hello to the Scouts family and have introduced yourself as a leader. But don't forget that you can always talk to the Scout's parent or guardian if you have concerns about the Scout. For instance, if you notice behaviors that you can't quite categorize, or suddenly odd behaviors, and so forth. Sometimes there's an explanation. Maybe a pet just died, or strange as this may seem, maybe they're all on the spectrum and the family hasn't told you about it. I did in fact have a Scout where the family did not tell us that the Scout was on the spectrum. And they were forthcoming when I asked them directly, but they had their reasons for not telling us outright, and sometimes that happens. If you can talk to the adults in the Scouts family and find out if something is sideways, it can help you to deliver a better program to your Scout. There are a few things I've noticed over the years that always seem to contribute towards youth's overall satisfaction, or lack thereof, of the unit that they're in. And I've also noticed that these things don't always get talked about. And since we're trying to positively develop and retain our Scouts, I'd like to bring a few of these issues to light today. I've met plenty of adults that feel the primary reason for a youth to be in Scouts BSA or any scouting program, Scouts BSA, is to earn the Eagle rank, and other adults that feel that a Scout in any program should aspire to the highest rank. Often high-ranking Scouts are pretty darn awesome, but it's definitely not a foregone conclusion. Some Scouts are only in Scouts to pursue an Eagle rank, a Summit rank, or Quartermaster rank in order to make the family member happy or to put on a college application or on a resume. Hopefully these youth get something more from the program than merely a check mark, and I'd like to think that at least some decide the program is worth enough to stay. But sometimes these youth drop from scouting as soon as they've earned that high rank, and we never hear from them again. This is frustrating for adult leaders, and it's certainly not awesome, but it does happen because the youth has completed their singular goal. Then there are the Scouts that earn the high rank and stick around because they still have friends to socialize with, but for whatever reason, the shine that once came with being in Scouts has vanished. Sometimes these youth become reluctant to be more than grudgingly helpful within the unit, and that causes great disappointment with the adult leadership. This is also unfortunate, but it also does happen. Some youth are simply put off by earning the top rank for their program because it appears to be overwhelming requirements, and some just aren't interested. So then, does not earning that high rank equal not being an awesome Scout? Oh, absolutely not. You may have youth that are not at all interested in rank advancement, but they're still actively contributing to your unit. And more importantly, they're still reaping the benefits of the scouting program. Of course, we'd like all Scouts to reach first class or the equivalent in the other programs. But even if they don't, they can be positive contributors and gain valuable life lessons from your program. I've seen many well-meaning adults that incessantly nudge, cajole, or even straight up demand that a youth works towards rank advancements. After the third or fourth instance of this, I've noticed the youth often dread being near that adult, and a few times have just stopped working on advancement entirely. Encouragement towards advancement is terrific and it's necessary, but moderation is your key. Sometimes the youth want or need a break from advancement to just have fun while they're scouting, and we should be having some fun, right? Over the years, I've heard a lot of trash talk from adults about part-time Scouts, and this is unfortunate. I often find that older Scouts of any rank, that due to modern schooling being what it is, start to take the time that they used to spend on scouting and use it instead to study, to participate in other extracurricular activities, or simply to rest or sleep because they're overscheduled. Other scouts find that once they're old enough, they want or need to replace scouting time with a paying job. These scouts tend to be looked up to and genuinely enjoy the program and get a lot from it, but simply can't seem to find as much time for scouting anymore. Please don't give up on these scouts. Welcome them when they're able to come to a meeting or an outing. Make sure they and their family stay in your unit communications loop. Remember them if a hole needs filling, such as when there's a need for someone to teach a specific skill at a specific meeting or outing, but don't always expect a yes, and be sure they know a no answer is acceptable. For some youth, just the social aspect of the program is all they're really looking for out of scouts. Being able to recognize this in some of the other scenarios we just discussed, and happily accepting these situations as opposed to providing constant pressure to show up or rank up, and possibly inadvertently pushing your youth out, will render a more positive outcome for everybody. All right, you've met their parents or guardians, you've spoken with the youth about what they're looking for, everyone in the unit is in the communications loop. Now where do we go? Well, let's start with some basics. Your number 3 development and retention tool is your actual program. Youth join scouts for many reasons, but if your unit isn't delivering on the promise of scouting, many youth will become disinterested quickly. If you notice a lack of enthusiasm for the program, even among just a few youth, take a closer look at what your unit is actually delivering to your scouts and see if it can better deliver on the promise. So we've got adventure in the outdoors, which is the basic promise of scouting. When people think of scouts, I think the first image that comes to mind is a gaggle of uniformed kids out camping. They're in the wild and they're having an adventure. Check real quick and see if your unit is delivering on this promise. Then we've got guns, knives, and fires. Okay, it's an old joke, but it's not entirely untrue. Modern youth don't generally have an opportunity in their daily lives to have hands-on time with fire, knives, and guns. The scouting program provides opportunities to learn about and practice with these things. Then we've got a sense of belonging. This is really important. Kids attend school, they have families, and they have other potential social outlets, but sometimes they can still feel like an outsider and feel alone. My youngest son is a good example of this one. So we moved across town and he started a new school. No one there would be his friend, and he was actually being actively bullied. We were supportive at home with him, but he still was feeling left out. He was feeling depressed, and he was just sad. Well, he had scouts. He had something every Tuesday to look forward to. And that is what got him through a really, really bad year at school. We finally got the bullying to stop. He finally made a friend, one friend that was willing to be his friend, but one's enough sometimes. But he had scouts, and he had friends there that were people that were not from his school. He had adult leaders that were happy to see him, and he had a great time and could forget once a week about what was going on. So a way to encourage that sense of belonging is through the use of uniforms, either Class A or Class B. Beyond that, a unit could have coordinated outerwear, such as embroidered windbreakers, or maybe, interesting neckerchiefs or something particular to an activity that your unit does regularly. The patrol method, not methods, in Scouts BSA is very important. Make sure everyone in the unit, again, is in the communications loop, and if possible, have a discrete means by which to help underfunded scouts participate in obtaining uniforms or specialized gear and in going on activities and outings. Take time to be sure that your unit is fostering inclusiveness and take steps to rectify it if you find it's not. Does your unit hold regular planning meetings with the PLC where the youth contribute their ideas and input? Or are the meetings planned and conducted by adult leaders? Does your unit conduct a yearly planning session that's run by the PLC or the youth equivalent? Are meetings geared around things that only younger scouts care about, leaving out the older scouts, or vice versa? What about your scouts with special needs? Is time made for a game to be played or some other short bit of fun to be had? Are the meetings always in the same place? Are you always covering handbook items or rank items? You could look at branching out if these are, things that are going on. For instance, meetings should be taking place probably in the same place most of the time, but maybe you could have in the summer a swim meeting where you can work on some things for, say, the swimming merit badge. You could have a cooking contest at your meeting site one night, if your meeting site will allow that, of course. You could incorporate a Halloween costume contest. You could have a learn to sew night. I taught the boys in my troop how to sew a button on, the simplest sewing you can imagine, but they didn't know how to do it. And they all were quite fascinated, I must say, and they all came away with a really basic skill. And please keep in mind that failure is an option in Scouts. Baden-Powell intended for Scouts to be a safe place to fail. Mistakes turn into lessons and learning. And when the youth have input into what will be part of the program, they also have motivation to see it succeed. Youth leaders benefit from knowing what their role in a scouting unit should entail and best practices for implementing and executing on that. A quick verbal description of a leadership position is a good start, but the Scouts will better understand and be able to fulfill their duties when there's a more comprehensive explanation that's given to them. A training can be done in an afternoon at your meeting place, or it can be done over the course of a camp out where it can be broken into smaller chunks and have games or activities and meals worked in. It's recommended that you have your outgoing head youth leader and your head adult leader plan and conduct the youth training, preferably before a weekend or two before the new youth leaders assume their roles. This isn't always possible though, in which case you should make the training schedule accommodate whatever works best for your unit at the time. I highly recommend training your youth at least once a year. Now, if you have some youth that really want to get into training and into leadership, NYLT is something that's put on by our council, and it's usually done up at Cheeseboro. It's TBD, pending COVID. And NAYLE is something that is a national leadership training course. Now, what about unit recognitions? Everyone likes to be appreciated for the things they've done. Whether it's a youth that's earned a merit badge or an adult that's finished training for their particular scouting position, or even that you had 6 members of your unit that participated in scouting for food, make time for these at regular meetings, during announcements, or at a court of honor. They're seemingly little things, but little things snowball, and we're looking to build big positive snowballs. And again, remember to recognize your adult leaders, not just the youth. This sends a message to the youth that all members of the unit are valuable and respected, and this helps them feel more positive towards belonging to your unit, and it plants the seed that good works, no matter by whom, will be recognized. It also gives the youth the chance to say thank you to adults when they may not otherwise know how. Day trips are a great way to help retain part-time scouts and also the older scouts that are suddenly overwhelmed with the academics. Day trips provide variety in your program and are especially good during times of inclement weather and can provide an opportunity for potential Cub Scout recruits to tag along for all or part of the day. You might try getting out there and trying something new, or maybe something different, or maybe something long forgotten. My troop hadn't been on a 50-miler in about 15 years before I took them on one, and now they go on 50-milers about every other year. But it was a novel and new thing because they hadn't been on one for so long. Many outdoor adventures will get scouts a long way towards earning a merit badge or rank advancement. Don't let boredom or lack of time steal older scouts away from your unit. If they are appropriately suited and aren't desperately needed somewhere else, maybe see if your up and coming cool older scouts would like to try one of these interesting leadership positions? And you all know what the cool older scout is, right? Those are the scouts that sometimes, but not always, have earned the highest rank there is in the program. They're always there to help out the younger scouts, and the younger scouts are always trying to hang around them, and they want to be just like them. They're friendly to the adults. They've got their respect, and they seem at ease when they're just scouting around. That's just cool older scouts, and it's what we're hoping to develop and retain more of. When you have youth that are still interested in scouting, but they have some of the time constraints that we talked about, you can suggest that they maybe try and earn awards or fulfill unit positions that require less of a time commitment on their part, such as some of these awards. Or you can help them figure out a really stretched out timeline where they can complete bit by bit an award they've wanted to try for but didn't think they could manage. Now, if you've got some scouts that just seem like they're maybe a little bored or want a little more, you can suggest some of these awards. These will engage a sense of challenge with your scouts and keep them very involved with the program. Good ways to develop and further engage these youth is to introduce them to the many other opportunities for impactful involvement through unit, community, and global vehicles, such as the Honor Patrol Award, the Hornaday Award, and the Messengers of Peace Award. And of course, there's always merit badges, an almost bottomless source of learning and engagement at any level of involvement. Only 450 scouts have earned them all. You can encourage your scouts to be 451. Now, the older scouts, they can still go to summer camp. Sometimes they grudgingly do because it's not as much fun for them, but it still can be fun. If you go to the same camp all the time and your scouts are generically lacking in enthusiasm, maybe propose trying a different camp for a year or two. For older scouts specifically, say if they'd like to participate in the camp's high adventure offering for the week, or maybe if they'd be interested in being a counselor in training, which is CIT, for the week before your unit arrives. They could also take on any of the other things that are listed here. If you have scouts that maybe yearn for more, well, we've got more for you. Maybe they try stepping out of the comfort zone. We've got International Rendezvous, we've got National Jamboree, we've got World Jamboree. They could try going to a high adventure base. The enthusiasm that the youth gain from participating in these unique events often spills over to other youth, and it can really reinvigorate a unit. If they just can't get enough scouting, you could try steering them towards one of the programs that they're not in, Scouts BSA, Venturing, or Sea Scouts. See if they'd like to earn their way into the Order of the Arrow. They could try Learning for Life or STEM Scouts. So what is the #1 development and retention resource? Well, it's you. As adult leaders, you set the tone for your unit. If you're operating under assumptions like the ones we discussed earlier, or if there's a negative attitude, then your adult leaders and your youth will sense this, and they will consequently grow or shrink to reflect your views. If you operate from a place of positivity, where you yourself demonstrate enthusiasm for, say, meetings, outings, PLC, where you yourself demonstrate compassion and understanding, such as making room for youth's time conflicts, and where your attitude about the youth, the other leaders, and your unit's program in general are upbeat, your adult leaders and youth will sense this and consequently grow in that manner. Your training equals your unit's improvement. Ignorance is not our friend. Just as youth leaders benefit from knowing what their role in a scouting unit should entail and best practices for implementing and executing on that, so do adult leaders benefit from the same. These are just a few things to keep in mind as an adult leader. The second paragraph in particular can be hard to accept, but it is important. So to recap, your number one Scout development and retention resource is you. You and the other adult leaders in your unit set the tone and need to be available to the youth for positive program guidance and support. Your number two resource is your unit's internal communication. Make sure everyone, parents or guardians, youth, and adult leaders, are included in communications about activities, meetings, and events, and that you and the other adult leaders are taking time to get to know the unit's youth and their home support. Your number three resource is the quality of your program. Check in every now and then and be sure your unit is actually delivering on Baden-Powell's scouting promise. Wow, it must be late in the morning. I'm tripping over my tongue. Try to also occasionally check that the youth are receiving not only the skills we all hope they derive from a successful program, but also whatever it is they themselves are specifically looking for, such as friendship or achievements. Helpful things to remember for development and retention of Scouts is to foster inclusiveness, try to be flexible and understanding with each Scout's situation, have something in place to help out Scouts that might need assistance with uniforms or outing costs, or even just a way to get to the meetings, and have fun. No one is 100% positive 100% of the time, but if you endeavor to keep your attitude, enthusiasm, and understanding on the up and up, your less than positive days will be less impactful to your unit, and you reap what you sow. So try to sow happy seeds. All right. So now is the time when you guys are welcome to unmute yourself and we can have a conversation about what has worked in your unit. If you have questions, now is the time for good questions. And also you are welcome to use the chat box because I will start reading it as soon as I stop sharing my screen. All right, questions, comments, other suggestions, feel free.
Marcy?
Yeah.
The biggest problem we have in our troop is that as soon as Scouts get into high school, their lives get crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It starts freshman year that their time is starting to be taken away, and sophomore year, and then junior year is just insane. And so it really is mostly a time issue, and it really, it hurts the troop because all of our oldest, best Scouts are, being sucked away, and those are the ones that are the leaders. I don't know that there's any solution for that, but do you have any thoughts on, what we can do to try and accommodate the fact that they just don't have time? They're just really, really busy with school, and something's got to give, and Scout is usually the thing. So any thoughts on that?
I do hear you. First, I'm going to open the floor. Does anybody have any suggestions on that one? Because you guys have been listening to me talk for half an hour. Just jump on in if you do.
Well, I think what you mentioned about not pressuring them is important. But you also want to nudge them in the right direction. And that's a fine balance that I haven't completely mastered. So it's tough.
Yeah, and then the worst thing is that, they do want Eagle, and up until, ninth grade or 10th grade, they were diligently working along, and now they're Star or even Life Scout, and they want to follow through, on the program. These kids are good kids, they're not quitters. And then what happens is they show up 6 months before their 18th birthday and say, I want to get Eagle. But then we haven't seen them for the last 6 months or a year or so. And so then on the one hand, you feel bad because you know how busy they are. But on the other hand, you want to go by proper scouting, procedure and ideals, where if a kid's not showing up, he's not really showing Scout spirit. So how can you kind of sign him off on, you don't want to have a kid saying, show up the last minute, get Eagle, and then he's gone. How is that benefiting anybody? So that's the real conflict that I have. That I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day, and that's what we struggle with.
All right. Anybody else got suggestions for Bob?
Yeah, so Marcy, I really agree with you about having a good program being a driver for those scouts. And we had a troop that had split into a troop and a venture crew, and all of the fun stuff happened in the venture crew, and the troop stuff was all basic, car camping type of scouting. So as the venture crew dissolved from lack of interest, we brought all that high adventure and even taking our normal outings and making it so that there was a more adventurous component to it. So, for example, we went to the Trinity Alps, and the younger boys stayed at the campground while the older boys did a hike back into a lake and camped out back in the lake. So we were able to drive together, share logistics, but had a set of adventure that was appropriate for both levels. And for the younger scouts, we let them hike in as a day hike with the older scouts, but then they had to leave, and then the older scouts got to stay at the lake. So it gave the younger scouts something to aspire to. So I think also going from more than this is tough to do, and you got to have a lot of adult leaders, but having more than one outing a month made a big difference for some of those time constraints that these older scouts have. Because if you fall into their testing patterns, forget it. For a junior, you're not going to see them. But if it happens that you've got a couple of different outings that maybe it's not the same level, you do one camp out, but some other service project or some other activity, so you get a chance to see them on the weekends when they're away from school, and you just lots of availability for time. But you got to have a lot of adult volunteers to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Okay.
All right. Any other suggestions for Bob and his struggles here?
Yeah, I've had the situation, Bob, where you're
Hi, I have a comment, more not a suggestion, but a comment. I also feel sometimes So my comment was, how much does the adults have in terms of following up also? If we don't see a scout for 2 months, 3 months, should the patrol or the ASMs, should we reach out and say, hey, how are you doing? Just a gentle, I guess, check-in to see how they're doing and make sure that they're okay and understand their situation. I guess that's my question there.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Mike. I'll address you in a second, Robertson. Go ahead and say what you were going to say, Mike.
Yeah, I've had the situation, Bob, you're talking about where the Eagle Scout, potential Eagle, comes in 6 months before they turn 18. And 6 months would have been great, but it's been more like 3 months or worse. And to me, I don't stress about it. I go by the requirements, and I don't cut any corners just because they come in at the last second. If they have the 6th month requirement of leadership, for instance, to go, I require that. And there are ways. I believe there's Scoutmaster can sign off on that if he gives an alternative to that 6 months. It can be done in a shorter time, but I always make it much tougher if they're trying to get it very quickly. And I just don't cut any corners on the requirements.
Right.
It to me, it's black and white.
We can go off into a whole discussion about advancement and advancement requirements, and that's like a whole nother session, because I mean I have maybe slightly different view that I really think that it's not just then you absolutely do the minimum and then you get Eagle. I just feel like that doesn't, like I said, doesn't serve the kid, that doesn't serve the program, doesn't serve the younger scouts. And so I kind of hold a little more emphasis to the word scout spirit, like what kind of spirit did he have? And then that's kind of the one fuzzy thing we're allowed to fill in right before we sign off Scoutmaster Conference, right? But anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. I'm just really more interested in keeping the kids involved. I want them, the whole scouting program is supposed to be that the older kids teach the younger kids, and it's all boy led or it's all youth led, and so I just struggle with the fact that I'm totally sympathize with the kids that are super, super busy. I mean, they got 7 AP classes they're taking or whatever it is, and there's just so much time in the day. And so I do like the idea that if you offer lots and lots of outings, then if they can't make any of them, well then, maybe they got priorities somewhere else, because there's got to be one weekend a month that they can possibly give to scouting, right? And if you've offered lots of outings and if they're not showing up, well then I think it's not just a time problem. There might be an attitude problem, so.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and address you here. So thank you for all the suggestions, you guys. That's all good. And that, your question, Bob, is the whole reason that this course was developed, because I can tell you in my troop, definitely we have faced those problems. And yeah, junior year is a killer in high school, especially when you get kids in those AP classes. Bye-bye, it was nice knowing you, at least that's what it feels like oftentimes. Even kids that aren't in AP classes, I don't know what it is in the modern schooling that makes junior year such a just trudge, but they just get so bogged down. So I totally feel you on that. I mean, and we also had a situation for, I want to say about 4, maybe 5 years in my troop, where we had a lot of musically inclined boys. It's my BSA troop, boy troop. So they were we had fully half of our troop in marching band. Wow. Marching band starts at the end of July, doesn't end until mid-December. Right. Okay. Right. So we were losing these guys freshman year through senior year from July to December. And it's, we all recognized what was going on. We all knew, because if you're in marching band, you got to have a passion for it. So you are dedicated to it. You can't not be. But most of these kids also had like a genuine passion for scouts. Mm-hmm. So that was really our trial by fire, was the marching band before a lot of these kids, because we kind of had a big bulk that moved through, and we lost a bunch of them junior year. But and by lost, I mean we just didn't see them. They came back. So that was our trial by fire. And what we found in learning to be very Gumby-like is that, yeah, they want to be part of the program. Mm-hmm. So to Robertson's point, and yes, see, I got back to you. Communication really is key. Checking in, if you haven't seen a scout for a month or two, check with their patrol leader. The patrol leader should be contacting the scout to say, hey, what's up? You okay? Everything good? Mm-hmm. When the patrol leader comes back to you and says, I don't know, what's up? Have your SPL, or if you're in Sea Scouts or venturing, the head youth there, check in with the scout. And if the SPL comes back to you and says, I don't know, then it's your turn. Because there might be something really extenuating that's going on. I mean, we've had families that ended up with dire financial, just sudden circumstances that caused some huge issues, or suddenly there was a grandparent that was moving in, the family got completely upended, or, I mean, there's just things, life happens, So it could be something like that, where if it's given just a couple months, they will come back and they're trying to juggle school and, social life and being cool outside and everything like that on top of all this. Being a teenager is not easy. Mm-hmm. But sometimes they've just gotten a little too involved with, say, marching band and kind of got really hyper focused on that. And just the little nudge of, hey, we kind of miss you over here is enough for them to go, oh, yeah, right, I love this thing too. Mm-hmm. And so maybe you are able to sit down with them and say, hey, how can we carve out some time? What will it take to help get you over? I mean, did you suddenly lose your ride on Tuesday night? Or are you, having marching band practice up until 6 o'clock and scouts is at 6:30 and you're just, like not able to get over in uniform? Because we can figure that out. I mean, we had a bunch of kids in this marching band scenario. Our meetings were Tuesday nights. They were at 7:30. Marching band tends to run until about 7:30. They needed to show up late. They needed to show up at 7:45. And they were buttoning up their uniform shirt as they were walking in. And they were wearing sports shorts. because, you know, they were just out marching around on the marching field, or maybe sweatpants, depending on if it was July or November. And we told them, this is okay, you know, because we would rather have them there, not in full class A, you know, and coming 15 or 20 minutes late than not seeing them at all. And some of these kids were able to take on, like I said earlier, a lighter position, something like the webmaster. Not important to have the webmaster necessarily at a meeting, but he does provide a valuable service for the troop, and it shows Scout spirit because he's helping with the website. Bugler, maybe they can only come to, you know, 1 or 2 outings during that 6 months, but if they're doing Reveille and if they're, you know, doing their thing.
You probably had a pretty good bugler too.
Actually, we had a really good one. 2 or 3, and a drummer, and oh my gosh, waking up at summer camp was an experience one year, let me tell you.
No, I think, thank you. I think all this is really good. And when I really, one thing I really got out of it is that when kids are in this high school situation, this might be the first time, probably is the first time in their life that they're overcommitted, that, you know, they suddenly see that there's only 24 hours in a day, and it freaks them out that, oh my God, I can't do everything. And some of them might take that as, I failed at scouting, and then they haven't showed up in 3 months, and they go, I can't go back now because it's too embarrassing for me to go back to that, you know, because I failed them. But if you do keep in communication, I think it goes like, okay, I understand you're in marching band or whatever it is. We look forward to seeing you, you know, in December or whenever it is that it ends. And then that way they know they're still accepted and that life goes on and that there is 24 hours in a day and everybody understands that, you're okay with that. And then the moment they come back, there's great joy and great excitement, you know, so.
Yeah, because I've found that we've had adults in our units before that just expect you must show up at 7:30 and you must be in full uniform before you get here and this and this and this and this. And
Right.
We had more than a few scouts that dropped because the attitude was entirely too rigid.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, we wouldn't expect this
No.
from an adult.
No, this is
So
not.
why we expect it from our teenagers,
Right.
I don't know.
Right. And so just to know that you understand their situation and that, you know, you know what stress they're going through, I think that would mean a lot to them. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think you've got it. And yeah, what you're dealing with is tough. Oh goodness, is it tough?
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments, suggestions? And oh, wait, real quick, just to get to Mary Catherine. The council is posting this, or is hoping to, they've been recording this and they're hoping to post it sometime soon. I don't know exactly when. They have to go through, they have to make sure there's nothing inappropriate, and then they'll release it. And that's on their timeline.
Marcy, I'll jump in here. Not to, I guess, promote scouts not going all the way to Eagle, but we recently had a scout that had been with us for a while, left the area, moved out of the area, couldn't find a troop where he had moved to. I surprised our scouts in our troop by inviting him to go with us to High Sierra last year. And he showed up. We met at Burger King in Sonora for lunch. He came walking in uniform. The scouts were just amazed that he was there. And then he and his family surprised us by telling us that they were actually moving back to Milpitas. So we got him back in the troop, got his sister into our sister troop, which was an amazing thing because she had always been able to go with us as a sister, but was never able to do the requirements and get awarded. So now we've got the family back in the troop. He's starting sophomore year of high school. He's running track. He's playing football. He got a job. And he's like, I don't have, oh, and then COVID hit. And he was one of the scouts that was always, every camp out, every activity, he was there. He was putting the outing in scouting. And during the virtual meetings and COVID and everything, he just wasn't keeping his interest. He just wasn't engaged with it. And he called or sent me an email and said, as hard as it was to make this decision, I had to make the decision that I'm not going to continue in scouting, but I want you to know that it has nothing to do with the troop. It has nothing to do with, excuse me, the program. It's just the fact that I am overextended and something's got to give. And he even went as far to say, I made it past first class. I will never forget what I have learned in scouting. And I will never forget the friends that I've made and the people that I met in scouting. And it was one of those, as hard as it was to see him leave, I was relieved at the fact that I knew he had gotten out of the program what was intended, even if he didn't make it all the way to Eagle. He's still registered in our venturing crew, and his sister is still in our sister troop. So I'm hopeful that we'll still see him. But, you know, sometimes they do have to make that tough decision. And I told him, hey, we're always here for you to support you. You know, I told him, when you're looking at colleges, things like that, if you need a personal reference, feel free to put me down. He'd already gotten a job, so he didn't need a reference for a job. But, you know, it's just sometimes they have to make that decision for themselves. But if they've gotten to first class, by then they should have gotten enough out of the program to have it really make a lasting impression on them. And with this scout in particular, I know for a fact that scouting is going to take him far in life. So again, not to be the other side of the coin, but sometimes that's just, you got to let them go, unfortunately.
No, that does happen. And that's in one of my last slides. That's what I was trying to say. You have to accept that this is okay. Sometimes it's just not their cup of tea. Sometimes you've got the best program in the world, but these scouts, they have to make a decision. And your scout sounds like he was mature enough to at least let you know why. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
we do have to be okay with that, and extending the invitation to come back, leaving that door open is great. Extending the invitation to join, you know, the venture crew and leaving that door open is great. And it, you know, fosters the positivity and the inclusiveness. And who knows, you might see him again, because you can venture until you're what, 21, so you may come back.
Exactly.
All right, anybody else with comments or questions? We're getting close to the end of our time here, so if you got them, say them now.
Oh, hi, Marcy. This is Tamara from
Hey, Tamara.
2817. Is there any way that we can get a copy of your slides? But thank you for the class. It's awesome. It's wonderful. I got a lot out of it, especially the communication part and development of the program. So it's good stuff. Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you, Tamara. I can send my slide to anybody that wants it. It's not going to do you too much good without me yammering behind it, but if it seeks to, you know, spark your memory, then I'm happy to send it out. And again, the council, we are recording this currently. The council's hoping to put it up at some point, and then you can just watch the whole thing again and listen to me go on and on and on.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Cool. Okay. Well, in that case, I want to thank you for being my second set of guinea pigs. If you have any feedback for me on this, I'm hoping to tweak it a little more for whenever the next University of Scouting ends up being. You are welcome to put them over here in chat or stay for a moment and just let me know. Otherwise, we are done for today. And I thank you very